Hello everybody, welcome to the third edition of the Virtual Art Gallery Workshop. Christopher Epling here again with you this week to walk you through the next phase in our progress of our 8-week session together. Really appreciate everyone who's participating, and just before we start I'd like to say something to all of the students. Now, I know that what we cover is a broad range when it comes to grade level, and we've said this before, but I want to mention this every time. 4th to 12th grade, it's a big range, so whenever we're trying to produce the content for the workshop, we keep that in mind. We keep the lesson plan in mind and what's in store. So we try to keep it so that it's, like I said last time, not too advanced for the younger grades, and it's not too undersimplified for the higher grades. So, but today is a special part of the project, and it's probably one of the most important. Drawing is the fun part. We all love to draw, and drawing is something that we can all talk about and all day. But really, if you're taking this seriously, this workshop, and your goal is to become a published author and illustrator, which is very possible if you do, exactly what you need to do and follow the steps. If you take it seriously, and this is something that you're really seeking, and you're taking it to heart, then this week and last week are probably two of the most important parts of the whole workshop. Writing with pictures, we're talking about developing your story, getting your concepts together, and what all does that entail? What does it mean to produce a story with pictures in a way that would be enjoyable for others to read? So that's really what we're talking about, and that's what we want to keep in mind during this entire process, okay? Whenever you're thinking about a picture book or a chapter book or a graphic novel, the first thing that comes into mind to me and to most of us is, well, what are the illustrations? What is it going to look like? Now, the words are more important, and like I've said before, pictures really serve as a soundtrack to the words. As you flip through a picture book, the illustrations are full bleed. That means they extend to the main edges of the pages. And those pictures are usually full of color, and they're very bright, vibrant, and they're nice to look at. And the words are on there, and they're positioned in different areas on a page, and those words seem to take a second seat to the illustrations. But without those words, one wouldn't really have any idea what's going on in the story. The illustrations can tell us just a little bit, but it doesn't tell us as much as what words. So we're going to be talking today about placement of words and how to put your story together and format that into your product, what you're going to be creating at the end. Now, so far, what everybody should have, and hopefully you do, is everyone should have either selected their focus, which is, are you going to write about a person, an individual, a leader, or are you going to write about a legend, so a superstition or a myth or something that's a story that is tied to your region in that aspect. So hopefully you've decided which one you're going to try to tackle, and you've picked something to tackle with. So you've either selected someone you're going to write about, or you've selected a legend or a myth that you're going to write about. And hopefully you've also begun to maybe get some research together and looking into those topics, finding out what that means. Now, I have some papers that's taped up here to the board, and they're taped up there for a very, very important reason. Most children's books are landscape, and we all know what landscape is. Landscape is when a paper is positioned long ways. When a paper page is positioned vertically, that's known as portrait. So those are two terms we really need to keep in mind as we move forward, because you're going to have to decide, is your book going to be portrait or is your book going to be landscape? That one decision to either position your book vertically or horizontally makes a big difference in how your book is put together. Not a lot of people think about what all goes into the creation of a book, but every single page and the placement of words on a page, even to what flows to the next page, is thought of prior to starting. And that's what we call a storyboard. Now, I want to share with you a couple of the books that were selected from last Virtual Art Gallery Workshop to show you what I mean by putting something together like a storyboard. And then we'll go into a storyboard. I'll break it down for you and show you what I mean. Okay? I'm going to share with you first is now this is Elizabeth Hall, and she is an elementary student. I think it's McGoffin County. And what we have here is her storyboard first. Okay. Now, what she did and what you will be doing is first you create a storyboard. A storyboard is kind of like a blueprint, a map to where you're going with your book. The storyboard helps you put all your ideas together. This isn't the completed book. This is her guideline. So Elizabeth has created a book before she ever started drawing or putting her book together. And I'll hold this up here to the board and maybe we can zoom in so you can see it a little better, okay? So what we have here is Elizabeth Hall's concept. This is what she is going to be producing for her concept, and what she has done is she's collected all of her ideas together and she's put those into a blueprint, a storyboard. Her storyboard's pretty detailed. She could have submitted this as her final book, but she planned her cover out. She knew what she wanted on her cover before she ever started on her final drawing. Here she has where she wants her text. So she wants her title at the top, and then down at the bottom, she wants her name. And this is, I'm sorry, Breathitt County. I correct myself there. Inside, if we were to turn the page, look at this. She's already has her characters. She's listed them at the bottom. She knows who her characters are before she ever started working on her final product. She knew exactly what she wanted to put on this first page. She has the bakery. Up here is the actual words to her story. And like I said at the bottom, these are the characters that's going to be taking place in the story. Storyboards help us because what they actually do is provide a map for us. We're creating our own blueprint to what we're going to be creating. Here on her second page, she has her drawing, her illustrations already lined out. She knows exactly what she wants on this page, which words are going to appear on this page. She's also at the bottom put a couple of notes for herself to remind herself to include a certain animal or maybe leave out one. We'll go ahead and turn the page a little bit further, and you can see here that she has her fourth page already lined out as well, where the words is going to take place. Now this isn't her finished book. Now Elizabeth could have submitted this as her finished book. I mean, it's put together well, but it's not really completely together. But it's such a great job in planning, and that's what I really wanted to get across. Her planning is extraordinary, and it's really important for us to think about these things whenever we're creating work. Okay, so now we're going to be breaking this down a little bit further for you so you can understand a little bit more about what I mean when I say storyboard. Storyboards can guide you through the process of creating your book. So the first thing you should have before you ever start working on your storyboard is your story. This is the most important thing. If you don't have what you're going to be creating, then you don't have any guideline to go by for creating your storyboard. So let's pretend up here on this blank piece of paper we have our story already written. Here's my story. Okay? I've decided before I ever started writing this story if I'm going to be doing a picture book, a chapter book, or a graphic novel. That's already been decided. Okay? So then I write my story, keeping this in mind. What am I going to be creating at the end of this project? After your story is completed, then we want to develop a storyboard. And this is how you do that. You read your story, okay? You read it and you think as you're reading it, how am I going to break down certain sentences to go on what page? What's going to go on my first page of my book? What's going to go on my cover? Now let's say we're going to develop our cover first. So just like Elizabeth Hall did with this, she has created a draft, if you will, okay? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to design your cover. So let's say we're going to be writing a book called Freddy the Frog Goes to the Circus. Okay, I just made that up on the top of my head. So on our cover, we know where our title will be. We'll just call it Freddy the Frog to save some time. How's that? Okay, Freddy the Frog. Okay, there's where my title is going to go on my cover. Below that, I may have a little frog sitting on a lily pad. Alright, so we're going to draw him sitting here on his little lily pad. Maybe he's looking up at the stars thinking about the circus or something. I don't know. But plan your book out. From cover, from start to finish. This should be planned out and thought of. Now I'm drawing this. This is a rough sketch. Your storyboard doesn't have to be absolutely completed to the point where you've got your color and you know. But if you want to do this, you can. Okay. Elizabeth decided to go all out. She wanted to know exactly what she's going to have on her pages, from the color of the trees to the types of characters. And guess what? Elizabeth's published now. So it's probably a good idea to take this seriously and maybe go as far as she did with planning out your book. Okay? So here I have an idea for my cover. Freddy the Frog, and at the bottom I can put my name, by Christopher Epling. Okay? The cover has been decided. Now, if I wanted to, add some color to that, I could, and you know, I could go a little bit more detail with the cover if I wanted to. Now we go into the first page of the book. Now my storyboard has been decided in terms of the cover. The cover's good now. We can lay this sheet to the side. We know what we're doing. Now we're going to the first page. And let's pretend up here on our story that the first few sentences of our story starts out as, Freddy the Frog was bored to death and tired of doing the same old thing. That's what we have. That's our sentence. So on our page, we know that we're going to show the readers what that sentence depicts. Freddy the Frog is bored to death. That's the main idea of your story, of the first part of your sentence, okay? So that's what we're going to show. But along with the illustration, we also want to keep the words in there. So as you're planning your book, think about where on this page are you going to place your words. Now, if it was up to me, if I was designing this book, I would probably place the words in the top left, because that's the first space that the person's going to look at and turn to when they turn the page. So you imagine that there's a book here, and I'm turning the page over. I'll flip the cover. First page of the book right here, okay? Up in the top left-hand corner, that's where I would place my words. So I'm just going to say Freddy the Frog was bored to death, okay? And we'll put that in the top. There we go. And there's where I'm placing my text or my words. And at the bottom, we can have Freddy the Frog here bored to death. We can have him with his, perhaps his head on his hand. How's that? Now, we know he's bored to death. He's got nothing to do. He does the same old thing all the time, and he wants to change that, okay? So for our first page of our book, we know exactly where we're going to draw. We know what words are going to go on there. Now we can move on to the next page. That's how the storyboard is lined out, okay? And I want you to keep that in mind as you go forward and you move along. Plan your book out. Now for a chapter book, this follows more of a picture book type of an idea. But for a chapter book, you would do primarily the same thing. The only difference is you will have fewer illustrations and much more words for a chapter book. Maybe you have an illustration at the beginning of a chapter. You don't have to make your book entirely too long. I think the maximum for a chapter book for a project is 70 pages. I think it's between 40 and 70 pages. So it doesn't have to be really, really big. But it's a good idea to plan out every step. Now your graphic novel, that's a whole other process. The storyboards for graphic novels are much more complex. But they're also at the same time needed to be that because there's more panels, there's drawings. For a picture book, there's one drawing per page. For a graphic novel, you may have 10 panels, which are the boxes that the comics go in, on one page. That's a lot more planning that you're going to have to do. But it can be done, and you don't have to overdo it. You could do simple sketches. You could even do a stick figure. So let's say I'm planning for my graphic novel, okay? So let's say this is the first page of my graphic novel. And this is my first page of my storyboard. So similar to with the picture book, I would read my story and I would depict what's going to happen on this page. I decide where the panels are going to go. How big are the panels? I draw these out to make sure that each one fits on the page. I may have larger panels and then I may have a few smaller panels. But you have to decide how you're going to tell your story using these boxes. Now once I know where all the panels are going to go on my page, for our storyboard, I may just draw stick figures. So there's a stick figure here going towards a door, okay? Here we have maybe the door opening and the stick figure walking in to wherever they are going, okay? So the stick figure is going inside the door here. So it doesn't have to be too detailed, but you do need to have something to go by. You need a format and a blueprint, and the storyboard is the best way to do that. All the students that entered their work from the last workshop, they each one had a storyboard with their work, okay? And here we have one of the books that was selected, and this is black and white because it's a comic, it's a graphic novel, okay? This is from Chrissy Walters, and she's from Belfry High School. And let's take a look at how she set up her panels here, all right? Now, she had a storyboard already in mind, and I'll grab the first page of her story to show you and the second page, okay? She knew exactly what's going to take place. She looked at her story, she read her story, she planned her panels, she drew those out, and then she started to create her work. This is a page from Chrissy's book here. And as you can see, she's already had planned out these panels. She knew what was going to happen. Here's the second page. She went to a full page illustration for this page here. There we go. So you can see there, she went from panels, and you can do this with the graphic novel. It's perfectly fine. So she went from multiple panels like we have here, and then for this next page she did a full spread, as we call it, where the illustration or the artwork goes all the way to the edges, but it's still inside a box. So this is one giant panel is what you can think of it as. But the reason she did that's very important. And this is what I wanted to share with you, because this is a part of planning your book. Chrissy decided to put this character all the way in its own illustration across the page for one really good reason. This is one of the main characters of her story. So when you read the first few panels, it talks about this main character, okay? And when it gets down to the bottom, before they introduce the character, when you turn the page, that character's got a page of their own. This is a very important character in her book. This is a great idea for Chrissy had in terms of using this, her layout to enhance her story. Okay, because while you're drawing these illustrations and you're putting together your book, you have to keep in mind that the reader, when they read this, wants to know that the illustrations follow the story. The illustrations have to complement the story. So keep that in mind. Use your illustrations in unique ways that will enhance the reading of your book later on. That will help you a lot in terms of becoming published. Okay? I want to share with you again, back to the Elizabeth Hall book. I have the finished version here as well. So we have first here, like I shared earlier, the storyboard on the front. So she knew exactly what she was going to do. And then she went and she did full-blown illustrations for each page. So you can see here what she's done. She has, here's her storyboard, and here's her finished product. Now you can tell she put a lot of time into her storyboard, but she put even more time into her finished product. So this is the cover. You can see how her storyboard resembles her cover a lot. Okay? And let's turn to the page and look at the next page in her book. And let's see how the storyboard follows along with it, okay? If I can get it open here. All right. So the second page of her book has the bakery, as you can see it there, right? And she's, at the bottom, has chosen which animals is going to be on this page. Her second page then shows the bakery alone. So this is very important. Planning is so important. Your story is the most important thing. It's not about your ability to draw like artists at Disney. And it's not about your ability to draw like artists at Pixar. But it is about your ability to tell a story. And I have another I want to share with you here too. You can pick various sizes for your work. So your book doesn't have to necessarily be an 8.5 by 11 piece of work. In fact, here's an example from Betsy Lane High School. This is Confessions of a Jailbird. Okay? And you can see how she has this clip at the top, and the reason for that is all of her pages inside of this book are cut to this size here. Okay, so you can have different sizes for your book. It doesn't have to be 8.5 by 11. You could do a 5 by 8 book. This is what this is, and that's perfectly fine. You could do a 5 by 8 landscape book. That's perfectly fine. So your size is important too when you're thinking about putting your book together. You can have any size you want. You are the creator of your own work, okay? But as you can see here, this is Taylor Bush and Abby Hamilton. They've chose this size for their book for a reason. This is more of a chapter book than anything, okay? And for their chapter book, they wanted this size. So think about that for your work too. What size are you going to print it as? What would you like it to look like when it's finished, okay? Okay, one more example I want to share with you. And this is really a special book out of Magoffin County. Really proud of this student. This is Supernova. And she forgot to put her name on the title, and I have it over there, but I'm not going to step out of camera and search for it. But forgive me for that. But this is titled Supernova. And I want to flip through this book with you and kind of show you a little bit about what she has done here. This is just amazing stuff. The placement of her artwork, the placement of her text, of her words, as you can see here, it's just amazing. It really is. You can tell that she's really thought where she's going to be putting and placing her illustrations, what she's going to be placing on the pages, and where she's going to be placing her words. Do you see this? She knew ahead of time that her text was going to be inside of this cloud. You see the cloud at the bottom. This wasn't an accident. It's not like she drew this page and there was a cloud there and it just so happened to fit that sentence perfectly. That's not an accident. This was planned out ahead of time by using a storyboard. So she sketched out what was going to happen on this page long before this page was ever created. And that's what we mean by writing with pictures. Her illustrations complement her words. So on this page, I'll read the sentence. Nova had beautiful curly hair that shined bright with stars. That's the sentence. If we look at the illustration, that's what's going on too. Now if I was to look at this, if I was to read that sentence, and the illustration showed maybe an ocean with dolphins jumping out of the water, maybe that wouldn't complement that sentence too well. But she's showing exactly what's happening. When I read that sentence and I look at the illustration, it matches perfectly. So keep that in mind too. Now sometimes you may have more than one sentence on a page. When that happens, you have to pick the most important part of what you're putting on the page. Okay? So you read the sentences over, and the main point or the main aspect or what's happening in those sentences should be what goes on that page. Okay? I'll show you another page from her book so you can see. Here we have a couple of panels. She's actually incorporated this into her work. That's perfectly fine too. If you're doing a picture book and let's say you want to change it up a little bit, you want to show 3 drawings on one page instead of 1 full page, that's perfectly fine, okay? It is your creation, but it's so important that you keep in mind that with this, that everything that you create has your own fingerprint on it, okay? And I want you to be able to to take this and create something that you're proud of. I'm going to go ahead and erase our graphic novel detail and up here as well, and I'm going to go ahead and pull Freddy the Frog off and our story that we used to create our storyboard. And we're going to talk a little bit more about storyboarding right now, okay? So a storyboard, it's what we've been talking about the entire time, storyboard. What is a storyboard? We've already went over basically how to put one together. For a picture book, you're deciding ahead of time what your book's going to look like. Is it going to be 8.5 by 5, such as this book? Or is it going to be 8.5 by 11, like Supernova? What is it going to look like? Is it going to be portrait? Is it going to be landscape? This is the time to decide these aspects of your work. So let's pretend that we're going to write a picture book. Our book is going to be a picture book at the end, our story, and it's going to be landscape, and it's going to be 8.5 by 11. Okay, so this is what our page will look like. It would be turned sideways as an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. There we go. So then, like we did earlier, you design your cover, then you read your story, and then you begin to plan your page. What I would do is something similar to what Elizabeth Hall did. Go ahead and plan where you're placing your words. You may put a box. Here's where my words are going to go on this page. Down at the bottom, right. Then you go ahead and you draw your illustration in the middle. Whatever it is you're going to be drawing, you put it inside of your page, okay? And once you have that done, then you go back and you look at your story again and you decide what's going to be happening on this page. Be creative with how you lay out your work, okay? You may even decide that you want to do something like this. Maybe you want to put 2 pages together. Maybe you want to do what's called a double spread in illustrations. A double spread is wherever you have 2 pages of a book running together, so that the illustration bounces over one page and it connects to the other. So 2 pages make up one drawing. That's what we're trying to get at, okay? We'll go ahead and tape these up here so you can get an idea. You may need a little bit more tape. I do. Let me see. There we go. A little bit more tape. And a little bit more tape. Now we're set. There we go. All right, so you pretend with me that this is a book, and we've opened the book up. So we've opened the book, and there's 2 pages inside of the book right here. For a double spread, what that means is that you may have an ocean. So let's pretend the ocean extends out, comes all the way into the shore. Now here's the shore, so then you can draw your island. You draw your island, here's your beach coming around like this, and your beach ends right here. You could draw your sun out there in the ocean. You could draw some trees over here on the island. Okay, so I've used all the space available to me, because if you have a double spread, you're actually using 2 pages to make up one illustration. But then you could also place your words in interesting ways on here. So let's pretend this is our beach. Okay, we got some trees over here. This is our island in the background. Have the sun's casting light on the water. Okay, now placement of words. I'll say I'm going to put my first few sentences on this page and a few more sentences over here on this page. Okay? Your storyboard will tell you exactly what you're going to be doing before you ever start. So that when you sit down to work on these final finished illustrations, you take your storyboard, set it beside of you, and basically go page by page and create what's there. Okay? It's really important. Storyboards can either make or break your whole entire project. If you know what you're going to do before you start, then this process is going to flow easy and you're going to have an enjoyable time. Now I know a lot of you probably are thinking when it comes to the leader option that could be pretty boring. But let me talk a little bit about how you can construct that to make it interesting. Every single person that has accomplished something or contributed something to their community, they've probably had a challenge to go through. They didn't really do it sort of in an easy way. There was something they had to either overcome or something that they had, some obstacle they had to overcome is what I'm trying to say. Typically, any type of leader that is recognized or well known, they've met a challenge and they've accomplished it. They didn't give up. So I want you to focus on that. That is really your middle of your story when it comes to leaders. Find out what it was that they overcome, what obstacles they met, and what types of things they did to get around that and find success at the end to benefit their community. Look at that challenge and make that the body of your work, okay? For your legends, hopefully you've went and you've asked certain elders in your community, your grandparents, ask your teachers as well, what are some legends surrounding your region or your home? When you find that, you're not going to really find probably a whole lot of resource material on it. So you're going to have to put your story together in a lot of ways by word of mouth or by oral tradition of stories passed down. That's perfectly fine. Put your story together any way that you can in that terms. You may even have to fill it in with something of your own. The legends aspect is going to be a fictional book, and then our leaders is nonfiction, okay? So I hope you're having a good time with this project. Please, for your storyboard, planning is everything, just like the examples I showed you today. These are students that, made it. And if you want to make it, then probably a good idea is to follow similar steps they took. The more planning you give this project, the better off you're going to be at the end, okay? So thank you so much for your time. I hope you're enjoying this workshop. And remember, take this seriously, but have fun at the same time. Because at the end, if you're selected and you're one of these students that's going to go on to become published, you're going to conduct book signings. You're going to have a means to create your own business. That means the University of Pikeville-Coleman School of Business is going to work with you to create a business plan. How are you going to sell your books and earn money by doing that, okay? And keep earning money by doing that. And they're going to help you to do that. I want to thank the Holler. The Holler's been amazing. Remember, go to theholler.org. Communicate, ask questions, share your progress. If you have a problem, that's where you have to go to get some answers, okay? So log in, register, go to the Art Workshop Holler. It's easy to find. Click on the Hollers. It may be on the home page. And once you're there, you'll see all of the active members in the Holler. And you can leave comments and just interact, okay? All of the information is going to be put out on there as well, so it's a good idea to check that often. Resources as well. We have a couple resources to help you write and create your story if you haven't already. So thank you so much for participating. I hope you're having a good time, and I look forward to seeing what you create. And I really look forward to next time. We're going to get into drawing soon, which is probably the most fun aspect of the whole workshop. But if you don't have a story written, it's going to be fun drawing, but there's probably not going to be any published books at the end for you. So take this portion seriously, okay? Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to seeing your work. Good luck, everybody.